The clatter of expensive plates and the hushed whispers of New York's elite were the soundtrack to her anxiety. She was just a shy waitress, invisible to the predators of high society. But tonight, she watched a silent, forgotten woman at the Billionaire's table. When the Billionaire's deaf mother secretly signaled for help, the waitress replied in a language no one else there understood. What she translated for the entire restaurant didn't just expose a cruel lie. It detonated a family, exposed a plot, and changed all of their lives forever. The air inside Aperture wasn't just air. It was a pressurized atmosphere of wealth. It cost 4 figures just to breathe it. Maya Thompson understood her role in this ecosystem. She was to be invisible, silent, and swift. Her uniform, a crisp black blouse and slacks, felt like camouflage. At 24, her shyness was a shield, a heavy cloak she'd worn since childhood. It made her an excellent waitress, observant, unobtrusive, but a nervous wreck of a person. "Thompson, table 7 needs water. Don't stare, just pour," Mr. Davies, the restaurant's manager, hissed as he swept past. Davies moved like a shark, all teeth and cold eyes, smelling blood in the water if a server so much as faltered. "Yes, Mr. Davies," Maya murmured, her voice barely a whisper. She hated this part of the job, the performance, but the pay, and more importantly the tips, were the only things keeping her and her younger brother, Ben, afloat. Ben was the center of her universe. He was 13, profoundly deaf, and the bravest person she knew. Their parents had been gone for years, leaving Maya to raise him. His silence had taught her a new language, a language of the hands, of the eyes, of the soul. American Sign Language was her secret, a fluency she never listed on a resume. It was the language of her home, of her heart. Here, in the world of Aperture, it was useless. Tonight, the tension in the restaurant was even thicker than usual. The reason was sitting at the coveted corner table, number 12. Her name was Veronica Croft. Veronica was a predator in a silk dress. She was a fixture in the society pages, a stunningly beautiful woman with a reputation for being surgically cruel to the help. Tonight, she was practically vibrating with a saccharine, false brightness. She was dining with her fiancé, the man whose name was whispered with a mixture of awe and fear. Rowan Ashford. Rowan Ashford was new money royalty, a tech billionaire who had conquered Wall Street before he was 30. He was sharp, severe, and carried an aura of impatient command. He was checking his phone before he'd even sat down. With them was a third person, an older woman who seemed like a ghost at the table. This was Madeline Ashford, Rowan's mother. She was elegant, with snow-white hair and the kind of bone structure that money couldn't buy. She sat in a state of placid silence, her eyes distant, her hands folded neatly in her lap. The staff had been briefed. Mrs. Ashford was unwell. She was deaf and, according to the prep sheet Veronica's assistant had sent, suffered from cognitive decline. "Treat her like a fragile piece of china," Davies had warned the staff. "Do not engage her directly. All communication goes through Ms. Croft or Mr. Ashford." Maya watched from her station. Veronica was leaning in, placing her hand on Rowan's arm, her laughter a bright, tinkling sound that didn't reach her eyes. She would occasionally pat Madeline's hand, a gesture one might give a well-behaved pet. Rowan, for his part, nodded, approved the wine, and returned to his phone, leaving Veronica to manage the social performance. Madeline Ashford just stared out the window. "Thompson!" Davies snapped, making Maya jump. "Table 12. Their server, Robert, just spilled a tray of flutes in the back. He's a mess. You're up. Do not mess this up." Maya's blood ran cold. "Table 12. Veronica, Rowan, the fragile mother. This was a minefield. Me? Mr. Davies, Are you refusing? His eyes narrowed. No, sir, right away. Her hands trembled as she picked up her silver tray, her feet feeling like lead. She approached the table, her heart hammering against her ribs. She could feel Veronica's eyes assessing her, cataloguing her, and dismissing her in a single, cold glance. Good evening, Maya managed, her voice tight. My name is Maya, and I will be taking over your service this evening. May I take your order, or would you care for another moment? Rowan didn't look up. We're ready. Veronica? I'll have the lobster, Veronica said, snapping her menu shut. And for Madeline, she said, her voice dropping into a patronizing, slow cadence. She will have the seared salmon. Plain. No sauce, and a glass of room-temperature water. She doesn't like complex flavors. Maya made the note, her pen shaking slightly. And for you, Mr. Ashford. The fillet. Medium rare. He still hadn't looked at her. Very good, sir. As Maya turned to leave, she locked eyes with Madeline Ashford. The older woman's eyes were not distant. They were not confused. They were sharp, intelligent, and filled with a profound, screaming loneliness. Madeline held her gaze for a split second. Then, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. Her right hand, resting in her lap below the table's edge, moved. Her fingers formed two distinct, hidden shapes. Help. Me. Maya froze. Her training, her shyness, her fear, it all screamed at her to walk away, to pretend she hadn't seen. It was a gesture, a tick, a mistake. But she knew what she saw. It was perfect, clear ASL. She broke eye contact, turned, and walked back toward the kitchen, her mind reeling. The kitchen door swished shut behind her, and she leaned against the cool metal, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She'd been a waitress for 3 years. She'd seen illicit affairs, shady business deals, and family feuds play out over $500 entrees. She knew the golden rule. You see nothing, you hear nothing, you say nothing. But she had never seen this. She had never been spoken to in her own secret language, and the woman who spoke it was supposedly lost to the world, a fragile doll who didn't like complex flavors. Maya put the order in, her hands moving on autopilot. But her mind was back at table 12. Help me. It was a plea, and Maya knew, with a sinking, terrifying certainty, that this was only the beginning. The first course arrived. Maya's movements were robotic. She placed the appetizers, oysters for Rowan, a complex beet salad for Veronica, and a simple broth for Madeline, with practiced precision. Is everything to your satisfaction? She asked the air in the middle of the table. It's fine, Veronica replied, already dismissing her. Maya retreated to her station, her eyes glued to table 12. She watched Veronica dominate the conversation, telling an animated story about a charity gala. Rowan watched his fiancée, a look of detached admiration on his face. He was admiring a beautiful, expensive object he was about to acquire. And Madeline was pushing the broth around in her bowl with a spoon, her face a mask of polite indifference. But her eyes were moving. They were tracking Maya. Maya pretended to polish silverware, her back to the table, but she angled herself just enough to watch Madeline's reflection in the dark glass of the wine cellar. Madeline waited. She waited until Rowan was focused on a text, and Veronica was tasting her wine. Then her left hand, the one hidden from her son and his fiancée by the lavish floral centerpiece, rose just slightly above the table. Her fingers moved, crisp and deliberate. That woman. She is a liar. Maya's breath caught. This was no mistake. This wasn't dementia. This was a clear, concise statement. Maya glanced around. Davies was berating a busboy near the entrance. No one else was watching. Maya, her heart feeling like it would burst from her chest, kept her body angled away from the table. She lifted her own hand, pretending to adjust her hair, and signed back a single, subtle query. Liar? How? Madeline's eyes widened. It was one thing to send a message in a bottle. It was another to get a reply. A tiny, fragile spark of hope lit up the older woman's face. She signed again, faster this time, her movements hidden by the tablecloth. She wants my money. She tells Rowan I am crazy. She is trying to lock me away. A chill snaked down Maya's spine. This was not a family dispute. This was something dark. This was the plot of a nightmare. Veronica suddenly laughed, a sharp sound that made Maya flinch. Rowan, darling, you should have seen the look on her face. Utterly pathetic. Rowan grunted in response, his eyes on his screen. Madeline's face hardened. She looked directly at Maya, her eyes pleading. He doesn't see. He doesn't listen. He only listens to her. Maya felt a rising tide of nausea. She knew that look. It was the same look of frustration she'd see on her brother Ben's face when strangers would talk at him, louder and slower, as if he were stupid. It was a look of profound, agonizing isolation. "Thompson, entrees are up!" the expediter shouted from the kitchen. Maya jumped, the spell broken. She retrieved the heavy plates, her mind racing. What could she do? She was a waitress. If she said anything, she would be fired. Veronica would have her blacklisted from every restaurant in the city. She would be ruined. She had Ben to think of. She couldn't risk it. She had to pretend she didn't understand. She approached the table. "Pardon me." She set Rowan's fillet down. The sizzling steak smelled like ash. She set Veronica's lobster down. The bright red shell looked menacing. Then she came to Madeline. She set down the plain, pale, sauceless piece of salmon. It was an insult on a plate. It was a meal for an invalid, a person deemed too simple for complex flavors. As Maya placed the plate, Madeline reached out, and, instead of touching the plate, her fingers brushed Maya's wrist. The touch was electric. It was cold and trembling, but desperate. Maya flinched and pulled her hand back. "Is there a problem?" Veronica's voice was sharp as glass. She had noticed the contact. "No, madam, I just wanted to ensure the plate was set correctly," Maya stammered. "Well, it is. You can go now," Veronica said, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. Maya retreated, her skin burning where Madeline had touched her. She wouldn't look back. She couldn't. She would do her job, collect the tip, and go home to Ben. She would forget the entire thing. She was refilling water at a nearby table when she saw it. Madeline was getting agitated. She was trying to get Rowan's attention. She tapped his arm. "Mother, not now." "I'm handling this," he said, clearly in the middle of a stressful email. "Rowan, she's trying to get your attention," Veronica said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Dearest," she said, turning to Madeline and speaking with that awful, slow exaggeration, "is your fish not good?" Madeline slammed her hand on the table. Not hard, but with a sharp finality that made the silverware jump. Rowan finally looked up, his face dark with annoyance. "Mother, what is it? We're in public." Madeline looked at him, her face a mask of anguish. Then she turned her head and looked directly across the dining room. She found Maya's eyes, and with both hands, in the open, for the entire restaurant to see, she began to sign. "She is not who you think. She is a thief. She hired a doctor to sign papers. She is stealing. She is stealing everything. Please tell my son. Tell him before it is too late." The dining room didn't go silent, but a pocket of silence formed around table 12. Everyone was staring, not at Maya, but at the dementia-addled mother making a scene. Veronica's face went white, then a splotchy, furious red. "Oh, you poor, confused thing," she said, grabbing Madeline's hands. "You're having one of your episodes. It's all right." Rowan looked mortified. "Mother, stop it. You're flapping your hands. You're embarrassing yourself." "He doesn't understand," Madeline signed, wrenching her hands free. She looked back at Maya, her eyes brimming with tears. "Please, I am not crazy. My name is Madeleine. Please." Rowan followed his mother's desperate gaze. His eyes, cold and assessing, locked onto Maya. Veronica saw it too. She saw where Madeleine was looking. She saw the look of absolute, terrified understanding on Maya's face. "You!" Veronica snarled, standing up and pointing a perfectly manicured finger at Maya. "What did you do to her? What did you say to her?" Every head in the restaurant turned. Mr. Davies was already halfway across the floor. "Mr. Ashford, Ms. Croft, is there a problem?" Davies said, arriving at the table. "This waitress," Veronica shrieked. "She's been making faces at Mrs. Ashford. She's upsetting her. I want her fired, now!" Rowan stood up, his towering frame casting a shadow over the table. He wasn't looking at Veronica. He wasn't looking at his mother. He was looking at Maya. "What did my mother say?" he demanded. His voice was not a shout, but a low, dangerous command. "You understood her. Tell me what she said." The world stopped. The clink of forks, the murmur of conversation, the distant sizzle from the kitchen, it all faded into a roaring in Maya's ears. Every eye in the five-star restaurant was on her, the invisible girl, now caught in the blazing spotlight of a billionaire's rage. Mr. Davies looked like he was about to have an aneurysm. "Mr. Ashford, I apologize. This server is clearly confused. She doesn't—" "Shut up, Davies," Rowan snapped, never taking his eyes off Maya. "You, waitress, what is your name?" "Maya. Maya Thompson, sir." Her voice was a reedy thread. "Maya," he repeated, tasting the name. "My mother is flapping her hands. My fiancé says you're upsetting her. But I watched my mother's eyes. She wasn't just flapping. She was speaking. And she was speaking to you." Veronica grabbed his arm. "Rowan, darling, don't be ridiculous. This is an act. This girl is probably looking for a payout. She's nobody. Just have her fired and let's go. Your mother is clearly distressed." Madeline, seeing her son's attention finally captured, started signing again, her movements frantic, desperate. "She lies. She lies. She lies. She's having a terrible episode," Veronica said, her voice rising with fake pity. "We need to get her home." "Tell me," Rowan commanded, his voice silencing the entire room. "Translate. Now." Maya looked from Rowan's cold, demanding face to Veronica's mask of pure hatred, and then to Madeleine. She saw her brother, Ben, in Madeleine's eyes. She saw the years of being dismissed, of being misunderstood, of being treated as less than, and the shyness, the fear that had ruled her entire life was suddenly burned away by a white-hot, clarifying rage. She stood up straight. Her voice, when it came out, was no longer a whisper. It was clear, steady, and cut through the silence. "She is not having an episode," Maya said, her eyes locked on Rowan. "Your mother is speaking perfect American Sign Language. And you're right. She is speaking to me, because no one else here will listen." A collective gasp went up from the surrounding tables. Rowan's face went pale. Veronica took an involuntary step back. How dare you?" "What did she say?" Rowan pressed her. Maya held his gaze. She said, "That woman is a liar." She said, "She is not who you think. She is a thief." She said, "She is trying to lock me away." The silence that followed was absolute. It was a vacuum. Veronica's perfectly constructed world, her poise, her social standing. It all fractured. You bitch, Veronica hissed, her voice dropping its polite veneer. You are finished. You will never work in this city again. Rowan, are you going to let this servant speak to me this way? But Rowan wasn't listening to Veronica. He was staring at his mother. Madeline, tears streaming down her face, was signing again, this time more slowly, adding more detail. Maya translated, her voice growing stronger with every word. She says she hired a doctor, a man named Dr. Alistair Finch. At the mention of the name, Rowan flinched as if he'd been struck. She had him sign papers, Maya continued, translating Madeline's furious, graceful movements. Papers that say I am incompetent, that I have dementia, that I cannot manage my own affairs. She is using them to access my personal accounts, my private trust. Not your money, Mr. Ashford, her money. Rowan, this is insane, Veronica shrieked. Dr. Finch is your family doctor. He's the one who diagnosed her. This girl is putting words in her mouth. Is she? Rowan said, his voice dangerously quiet. He turned to Maya. Ask her something. Something only my mother would know. Maya paused, then turned to Madeline and signed. What was the name of your husband's first dog? Madeline looked confused for a second, then signed back, her fingers moving quickly. Barnaby. He was a terrible beagle. He ate my wedding shoes. Maya turned to Rowan. She said his name was Barnaby, a beagle. He ate her wedding shoes. Rowan's blood ran cold. It was a story his father used to tell, a story he hadn't thought of in 20 years. Veronica couldn't possibly know it. This waitress couldn't know it. He looked at his mother, really looked at her, for the first time in years. He saw not a fragile invalid, but an intelligent, terrified, and furious woman, a prisoner. Rowan, Veronica tried again, her voice pleading now, the mask cracking. He held up a hand. Don't. He turned back to Maya. And the rest. What else did she say? Maya took a deep breath. This was it. This was the point of no return. She said, she is stealing. She has been liquidating my personal stocks. She forged my signature. And then she said, please tell my son. Tell him before it is too late. Rowan Ashford, a man who had never shown a moment of weakness in his public life, staggered back a step. He looked at Veronica, his face a granite mask of dawning comprehension. Veronica, he said. Rowan, baby, listen to me. This is a setup, a conspiracy. Veronica was grasping at straws, her eyes wide with panic. This waitress and your sick mother, they planned this. Planned it? Rowan's voice was arctic. In the middle of Aperture, using a waitress you've never met. You think my mother, who you told me could barely remember her own name, orchestrated this? Mr. Ashford, Davies stammered, his face ashen. Please, perhaps you could take this to a private room? You are disturbing the other guests. Rowan turned on him. Disturbing them? I think we're just getting to the interesting part. Davies, call security. Have them lock the front door. No one leaves, especially not Miss Croft. Sir, I can't. Do it, or I will buy this building and have it demolished with you inside. Davies fumbled for his phone. Veronica lunged for the exit. You can't do this to me. I'm leaving. Two large bus boys, seeing their chance to be heroes, moved to block her path. Rowan turned back to Maya, his expression unreadable. You, Miss Thompson, you are coming with me. You are not a waitress anymore. He looked at his mother, his eyes filled with a new, horrifying shame. And you, mother, you are going to tell me everything. He then looked at his fiancée, who was being held by the arms, her beautiful face twisted into a snarl of pure venom. "And Veronica," he said, "you are going to tell me about Dr. Alistair Finch." The elegant, rose-colored dining room of Aperture transformed into a high-stakes interrogation room. The other diners, sensing the shift in the power dynamic, fell into a stunned, voyeuristic silence. Mr. Davies, pale and sweating, had done as instructed. The restaurant's heavy oak doors were closed. Rowan directed them to the cognac room, a private dining area reserved for the restaurant's most powerful clientele. It was panelled in dark mahogany, with a single, heavy table and plush leather chairs. The air was thick with the smell of old money and new trouble. Rowan sat at the head of the table. He motioned for his mother to sit on his right. Then he pointed to the chair on his left. "Miss Thompson, please." Maya, her legs feeling like jelly, sat down. She was a waitress in a 5,000-a-night room at the center of a billionaire's collapsing life. Veronica was shoved into a chair at the far end of the table by one of the busboys, who now stood flanking the door like makeshift guards. "Rowan, you are making a colossal mistake," Veronica seethed, trying to regain her composure. "This is kidnapping. I will have you arrested. I will sue you. I will sue this entire restaurant." "You'll have to get in line," Rowan said, his voice flat. He pulled out his phone, a sleek black device that looked more like a weapon than a communication tool. He placed it on the table and hit a single button. "Marcus," he said, "I need you at Aperture on 53rd Street. Now, bring a full forensics accounting team and a private security detail. And I want everything you can find on a Dr. Alistair Finch. I want to know where he is, who he's spoken to, and what his bank accounts look like for the last 6 months. Go." He hung up without waiting for a reply. He turned his gaze to Veronica. The silence in the room was deafening. "Alistair Finch," Rowan said, steepling his fingers. "He's been our family physician for 20 years. My father trusted him. He's a good doctor, Rowan. He's been so worried about Madeline," Veronica said, trying a new tactic, her voice soft and full of practiced sympathy. "He told us this could happen. Paranoia, lashing out. It's a classic symptom of her decline." Rowan looked at his mother. Madeline was trembling, but her eyes were clear. She looked at Maya and began to sign. Maya, swallowing her fear, found her voice. She says, "He is not a good doctor. He is a gambler. He has debts." Veronica's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. A hit. "Go on," Rowan said. Madeline signed again, her movements sharp. "Veronica found him. She paid his debts. I saw the statements before she took away my checkbook. He owed money to a casino, the Orion Club in Atlantic City." Maya relayed the message. Rowan's face didn't change, but he picked up his phone and typed a rapid text. "Check Orion Club. Finch. Croft." "This is absurd," Veronica scoffed, but a bead of sweat was tracing a line down her perfect temple. She's making it up. She's a vindictive old woman who never thought I was good enough for you. And she's using this waitress to say these awful things. That's the part I keep coming back to, Veronica," Rowan said, leaning forward. "Miss Thompson, how long have you known my mother?" I've never seen her before in my life, sir." "Until tonight," Maya said. "And your fluency?" "My younger brother, Ben. He's deaf," Maya said simply. "I've been signing since I was 6 years old. It's our language." Rowan nodded slowly, absorbing this. He looked at the plain, terrified and utterly believable girl in the server's uniform. Then he looked at his fiancée, a woman who looked like she was about to crawl out of her own skin. "The papers," Rowan said to Maya. "Ask my mother about the papers." Maya turned and signed. "The papers." Where are they? Madeline responded instantly. Her briefcase, the dark red one. She carries it everywhere. She's so proud of them. She called it her insurance policy. She brought it to show me today. To gloat. She said soon I'd be in a nice, quiet place where I couldn't bother anyone. Rowan, don't listen to her, Veronica shrieked. Rowan's phone buzzed on the table. A text. He glanced at it. His face darkened. Marcus found the wire transfer, he said, his voice a low growl. $100,000. From an offshore account in your name, Veronica, to Dr. Alistair Finch. 2 months ago. The same week he officially declared my mother cognitively unfit. Veronica stopped breathing. The color drained from her face, leaving her looking like a porcelain doll, beautiful and empty. My mother's red briefcase, Rowan said, his voice like velvet-covered steel. It's in the car, isn't it? My Bentley? The one I let you drive. Veronica was silent. Marcus, Rowan spoke to his phone again. Have my driver open the trunk of the Bentley. There's a red briefcase. Bring it to me. Do not let Ms. Croft's driver touch it. No! Veronica screamed, lunging across the table. You have no right. That's private. That's my property. The 2 busboys grabbed her, pulling her back into the chair. Her facade of sophistication was completely gone, replaced by the raw panic of a cornered animal. The show is over, Veronica, Rowan said. He turned to Maya, and for the first time, she saw something other than anger or command in his eyes. It was a deep, profound, and devastating shame. Miss Thompson, he said, his voice cracking slightly. Please, ask my mother. Ask her why she didn't tell me. Maya's heart broke. She turned to Madeline and gently signed the question. Madeline looked at her son, and the tears that had been welling finally fell. She signed, her hands shaking with the force of her grief. Maya translated, her own voice thick with emotion. I tried, she whispered. I tried for 6 months. Every time I tried to write you a note, she would find it and tear it up, telling me I was just confusing you. Every time I tried to speak to you alone, she would interrupt, saying I was tired and needed to rest. She replaced my private nurse with one of her own. She took my phone. She took my laptop. She told me that if I made a fuss, you would be so stressed you'd have me committed yourself, just to have peace. She paused, taking a shaking breath. He's so busy, she said. He doesn't have time for your problems. And I believed her. You never looked at me. You never really saw me. You just saw a burden. And she saw an opportunity. The words hung in the air, an indictment more powerful than any legal document. Rowan Ashford winced, the truth of it hitting him like a physical blow. He had been too busy. He had seen his mother as a problem to be managed. He had outsourced her care, her life, to the very woman who was now trying to destroy her. The door to the cognac room opened. A tall man in an impeccable suit, Marcus, entered. He held a dark red leather briefcase. Good evening, Mr. Ashford. Ms. Croft. He placed the briefcase on the table in front of Rowan. You were right to check, sir. The Orion Club confirms Dr. Finch has an outstanding marker for just over 100,000. And this... He clicked the latches and opened the case. Inside, nestled on velvet lining, was a thick sheaf of legal documents. On top was a medical power of attorney and a document titled Application for Involuntary Conservatorship, signed by Dr. Alistair Finch and, with a forged looping signature, Madeline Ashford. Veronica Croft let out a sound, a high-pitched, keening wail. It was the sound of a life ending. Rowan picked up the papers, his hand steady. He read the top page, then the second. Then he looked at Veronica. You, he said, his voice empty of all emotion, "are a monster." "Rowan, please, I did it for us," she sobbed. "She had so much. She wasn't even using it. It was just sitting there. I love you. You love my name. You love my money. And you were so greedy, you couldn't even wait until I married you. You had to steal from my mother first." He stood up. "Marcus, take her. Hand her over to the police. I want the finest prosecutor in New York City to handle this. I want her to face charges for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The same goes for Dr. Finch. Find him." "No! Rowan, no!" Veronica shrieked as Marcus and the other security guards lifted her from the chair. She fought, her nails scratching, her designer dress tearing. "You'll regret this! I'll tell everyone! I'll ruin you!" "You can't ruin a man who's already ruined himself," Rowan said, turning his back on her as she was dragged from the room, her curses echoing down the hall. The door clicked shut. Rowan Ashford stood in the silent, opulent room, facing his mother. And he didn't have the slightest idea what to do. He couldn't speak her language. He had no words, in any language, for the depth of his failure. He looked at Maya, his expression shattered. "Miss Thompson," he said, his voice raw. "Please, help me. Tell her I'm sorry." The heavy silence that fell in the cognac room was different now. It was no longer the silence of tension, but of a devastating void. Rowan Ashford, a man who commanded boardrooms and built empires, was utterly lost. He stared at his mother, this woman who had been a stranger in his own home, and saw the wreckage his neglect had wrought. Maya's heart ached for both of them. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a bridge over a chasm of silence and betrayal. She turned to Madeline, her hands moving with a gentleness that was the complete opposite of the night's violence. "He says he is so sorry." Madeline looked at her son. She had waited years for this. Her gaze was not soft. It was not immediately forgiving. It was the gaze of a survivor, assessing the damage. She signed. Sorry is a word. His actions were louder. Maya translated softly. She says, "Sorry is a word. Your actions were louder." Rowan flinched, but he nodded. "She's right. She's right. I was a fool. I was an arrogant, blind fool. I listened to Veronica because it was easy. She told me what I wanted to hear, that Mother was fine, that she was handled. It meant I didn't have to do the work. It meant I didn't have to face." He trailed off, ashamed. "Face what, Mr. Ashford?" Maya asked quietly. "That I don't know how," he admitted, his voice dropping to a whisper. "After my father died, she just retreated. Her hearing was already going, and she just stopped. And I didn't know how to reach her. I let her drift away. It was easier to build an empire than to learn. This." He gestured helplessly at Maya's hands. He looked at his mother again. I bought into the idea that she was fragile, that her mind was going. It was a lie I think I wanted to believe, because the alternative was that she was just lonely. And that was my fault. Maya translated this, her own eyes filling with tears. It was the most honest, painful confession she had ever witnessed. As Madeline understood his words, her hard expression finally softened. The anger gave way to a profound, bone-deep sadness. She signed. He was my son, my bright boy. He disappeared. He was replaced by a king. All he had were subjects. He forgot how to have a family. When Maya repeated the words, Rowan had to sit down. He buried his face in his hands. The sound he made was a choked, dry sob. The three of them sat there for a long moment. The crisis was over, but the real work, the impossible, messy work of rebuilding, had just begun. Mr. Davies, his face still a mask of terror, knocked tentatively on the door. "Mr. Ashford, the police are here. They are escorting Ms. Croft. They have questions. And your accounting team is here." Rowan took a deep breath, composing himself. The billionaire was back, but his eyes were changed. "Send the accountants in. Tell the police I will be out in 5 minutes. I am giving my full cooperation." And Miss Thompson, sir?" "What? What should I—" Rowan and Maya looked at each other. The restaurant, the tables, the spilled wine. It all seemed like a different lifetime. "Miss Thompson is no longer your employee," Rowan said, his voice firm. "She is with me." "But sir, her shift is over. Her job here is over. Send me the bill for the entire evening, including the disturbance. And for Miss Thompson's trouble, add a $50,000 service charge. She can consider it her severance." Maya's jaw dropped. "Sir, I can't." "You can and you will," Rowan said, not unkindly. "You saved my mother's life. You saved her fortune. You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. A severance for your old job is the least I can do, because I'm about to offer you a new one." "A new job?" Maya said, bewildered. "Yes, you said it yourself. You're an interpreter. My mother needs one. I need one." He looked at Maya, his gaze direct. "I want to hire you, Miss Thompson, full-time, as my mother's personal interpreter and companion. Your salary will be triple what you make here. You'll have benefits, a car, a housing allowance, whatever you need." Maya was stunned. It was a lifeline. It was a golden cage. She looked at Madeline. The older woman was watching her, her expression anxious. "Please," Madeline signed, her hands small and pleading. "Don't leave me alone with him. He's a beginner. He needs supervision." A small, watery smile touched Maya's lips. She saw the humor, the life, the person that Rowan had missed for so long. I have a brother," Maya said, her voice shaking. "Ben, he's 13. I'm his legal guardian. I can't just—" "Bring him," Rowan said without hesitation. "The housing allowance will cover a place for both of you. He'll have the best schools, the best doctors, whatever he needs." This was it, a chance, not just to be safe, but to give Ben a life she could only dream of. But she wouldn't be a pushover. Not anymore. "On 2 conditions," Maya said, her own voice surprising her with its strength. Rowan raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "First," Maya said, "I'm not your employee. I work for her." She pointed to Madeline. "My loyalty is to her. I am her voice. You will respect that." Rowan nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "Done. And the second?" "You learn to sign," Maya said. "I'll be the interpreter. But you have to learn to talk to your own mother. I won't be a permanent crutch. You have to do the work." Rowan Ashford looked at his mother, who was watching him, waiting. He then looked at the young waitress who had, in the space of an hour, become the most important person in his life. He nodded, a look of grim, humble determination on his face. "Done," he said. He stuck out his hand. "Welcome to the family, Miss Thompson." Maya, the shy waitress, took the billionaire's hand and shook it. It wasn't a handshake. It was a contract. The team of forensic accountants, sharp-suited men and women with laptops, filed into the room, and the next chapter began. Maya sat beside Madeline, translating the complex questions from the accountants about her portfolio, her assets, and the exact details of Veronica's fraud. For the first time, Madeline Ashford wasn't confused. She was sharp, precise, and angry. She detailed dates, account numbers, and conversations. She was, as Maya had known, brilliant. As she watched this powerful woman reclaim her life, word by word, sign by sign, Maya realized she had done more than just get a new job. She had found her own voice, too. The days that followed were a whirlwind. The story of Veronica Croft's dramatic arrest at Aperture was the biggest scandal to hit New York high society in a decade. Rowan Ashford, true to his word, didn't hide. He released a statement, in a spirit of full transparency, praising his mother's strength and resilience in the face of a predatory and despicable campaign of fraud. He publicly credited an anonymous restaurant employee whose unique skills and incredible bravery had brought the plot to light. Maya's name was kept out of the papers, but within the walls of the Ashford penthouse, she was no longer invisible. The penthouse was a glass box in the sky, with views that stretched from the Statue of Liberty to Central Park. It was beautiful, sterile, and for Madeleine, a prison. Rowan, in his shame, had wanted to fix everything with money. He bought his mother a new wardrobe, hired gourmet chefs, and tried to fill her life with things. But Maya, true to her word, held him to his promise. "She doesn't want a new painting, Mr. Ashford," Maya said, standing between him and his mother in the vast, white living room. "She wants her son." "I'm here," Rowan said, frustrated, gesturing at the expensive flowers he'd had delivered. "No," Maya countered. "You're present. You're not here." She looked at Madeleine, who was watching them, a small, wry smile on her face. Madeleine signed. "He's like a big, dumb dog," Maya translated, "who drags in a dead bird and thinks it's a gift. He's proud. The bird is disgusting." Rowan stared. She said, "I'm a big, dumb dog." "A golden retriever, specifically," Maya translated Madeleine's addendum. "Looks impressive. Not a lot going on upstairs." Rowan, for the first time, laughed. A real, genuine laugh. She has a sense of humor." "I always did," Madeleine signed. "You just weren't listening." That was the turning point. Rowan cancelled his afternoon meetings. He sat. He did the work. Maya started with the basics, the alphabet, A, B, C, D. Rowan's large, capable hands were clumsy and slow. He, a man who could analyze stock market algorithms in his head, struggled to form a simple E. Ben, Maya's brother, was introduced to the penthouse. He was wary at first, intimidated by the scale of it all, but Madeleine Ashford, who had been starved for genuine connection, adored him. Maya watched one afternoon as Madeleine and Ben sat on the floor, building an elaborate Lego tower, their hands flying in a rapid, complex conversation about superheroes and school. Rowan watched from the doorway, his multi-million-dollar suit looking out of place. He saw his mother laugh, a real, unrestrained laugh, a sound he hadn't heard since his father was alive. He turned to Maya. I've been so wrong. About everything." "It's never too late to be right," Maya said. The hard karma for Veronica and Dr. Finch was swift and brutal. With the Ashford legal team and the power of the DA's office, there was no escape. Dr. Alistair Finch was the first to fall. Stripped of his medical license, facing massive lawsuits and criminal charges, he confessed to everything in exchange for a lighter sentence. He admitted to falsifying the dementia diagnosis, to accepting the bribe, and to systematically helping Veronica gaslight both Rowan and Madeleine. His reputation was annihilated, his life's work turned to ash. Veronica's trial was a spectacle. She tried to play the victim, the woman in love, blinded by a powerful man. But the evidence was overwhelming. The forged signatures, the bank transfers, the testimony from Dr. Finch. The most damning evidence, however, came from Madeleine Ashford herself. She stood in the courtroom, with Maya by her side as her official interpreter. She did not look like a fragile victim. She was an empress. She delivered her testimony in ASL, her movements precise and powerful, her eyes boring into Veronica. She recounted every threat, every lie, every moment of manipulation. When the cross-examining lawyer tried to trip her up, to imply she was confused, Madeleine signed to Maya. "Tell him. A confused woman doesn't check the Cayman Islands bank ledgers. Tell him a confused woman doesn't memorize the wire transfer number Veronica left on her desk. 88-4TKZ9. The courtroom was silent. Veronica's lawyer had no more questions. Veronica Croft was found guilty on all counts: fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and elder abuse. The judge, calling her actions a snake-like betrayal of human decency, sentenced her to the maximum term, 15 years in state prison. The beautiful socialite, who had lived for the cameras, was dragged from the courtroom in handcuffs, her face a mask of ugly, defeated rage. She had lost her fiancé, her reputation, her freedom, and every cent she had stolen. In the car on the way home, Rowan was quiet. Madeleine reached over and put her hand on his. He didn't pull away. Instead, he slowly, clumsily, formed the letters with his own hand. So Y. Madeleine looked at his fumbling fingers, then up at his face. She smiled, and she signed back. I-K-N-O-W. The penthouse, once a sterile glass box, began to change. The white walls were repainted in warm colours Madeleine had picked. The severe modern art was replaced with vibrant paintings. Ben's laughter and the sound of his video games echoed down the halls, a joyful noise in a house that had been silent for too long. Maya's role evolved. She was no longer just an interpreter. She was a part of the family. She was Madeleine's confidant, Ben's protector, and to Rowan's surprise, his conscience. Rowan had changed, too. He was still a billionaire, still a powerhouse in the business world, but his priorities had been forcibly realigned. He took his mother to board meetings, with Maya there to interpret, and the stony-faced board members were stunned to find that Madeleine Ashford had a sharper mind for business than most of them. She had, after all, helped her husband build the original company. She became his most trusted advisor. The romance, which had seemed like a predictable trope, took a different, more realistic path. It wasn't a whirlwind. It was slow. It was built not on passionate glances over dinner, but on shared moments of quiet understanding. It was Rowan watching Maya patiently explain a complex legal document to his mother. It was Maya watching Rowan, after a grueling 18-hour workday, sit on the floor and patiently practice his sign language with Ben, laughing at his own mistakes. One evening, Maya was on the terrace, reading. Rowan came out, holding 2 mugs of tea. He'd been traveling for a week, closing a deal in Tokyo. He handed her a mug. "She missed you," he said. "I missed her too," Maya said, smiling. "And Ben, he beat her at chess twice." "He's a shark," Rowan chuckled. He sat across from her. He looked tired, but happy. He signed. "And you, did you miss me?" His signing was still a little clumsy, but it was clear. It was his. Maya felt a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the tea. She smiled and signed back. A little. The house is too quiet when the big dog is away. He laughed, a real easy laugh. I deserved that. He grew serious. "Maya, what you did, you didn't just give me my mother back. You gave me back. I was lost. I was becoming a person I hated." "You were just speaking the wrong language," Maya said softly. "I'm learning," he said. He reached across the table, not to grab her hand, but just to rest his near hers. "I want to keep learning. With you." It wasn't a proposal, it was a promise, a start. The next day, Maya, Rowan, Madeline, and Ben went to Central Park. It was a bright, crisp autumn afternoon. Ben was flying a kite, his laughter silent but infectious. Madeline and Rowan were sitting on a bench, engaged in an animated signed argument about a new company acquisition. Rowan was fumbling, signing buy when he meant sell, and Madeline was rolling her eyes, correcting him with the sharp wit of a loving parent. Maya stood back, watching them. She watched this billionaire, this king, humbly accept his mother's corrections. She watched this woman, once a prisoner in her own home, now run a business empire, her hands her new, powerful voice. She, the shy waitress, had done this. She had seen the unseen, heard the unheard, and spoken the unspoken. Rowan caught her eye from the bench. He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. He stopped arguing with his mother and signed 3 simple words to Maya across the distance. Thank you. Maya. Maya smiled back. She didn't need to sign. He could read the answer on her face. This was her new life. It wasn't about the money, or the penthouse, or the prestige. It was about this. Connection. Understanding. A family rebuilt on a new, silent, and unbreakable foundation. Thank you so much for listening to this story. It's a powerful reminder that the quietest people often have the most to say, and that sometimes the most invisible person in the room is the only one who is truly watching. We see how neglect can be just as cruel as active malice, and how a single act of bravery, a single moment of choosing to get involved, can shatter a prison of lies. The story of Maya, Madeline, and Rowan shows us that it's never, ever too late to learn a new language, especially the language of family. If this story moved you, please show your support. It helps our channel more than you know. Go ahead and hit that like button, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel for more real-life drama and powerful stories. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. And now, we want to hear from you. What part of this story shocked you the most? Was it Veronica's cold-blooded plot or Rowan's terrible neglect? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.